Really the right person. Done this for many, many years. He was Church Judas. I guess he's not have to come into shul tonight, but he would tell you.
קדושים וטהורים, כזו הגיע מהזילים, לנשמות לבבות אלפי ישראל, אנשים, נשים וטף, שנהרגו ונשחטו ונשרפו ונחנקו ונקראו חיים. בארצות אשר נגע בהן יד, לצורר הגרמני וגבורה בקידוש השם. כולם קדושים וטהורים, והם גאונים וצדיקים, עוזי לבנון ואדירי התורה. לכן ברחמים יצרים שאת כנפיו לעולמים, בצרור וצורכים את נשמותיהם, יזכור עקידתם ותעמוד לנו לכל ישראל זכותם, ארץ על תחתית דמם ועל יהי מקום לזעקתם, בזכותם ישובו נדחי ישראל אחוזתם, אדוני נחלתם וגן עדן למנוחתם, וינוחו בשלום המשכבם, ויעמדו לגואלם לקץ הימים, ונאמר אמן.
Okay, so as we're all aware, tonight and tomorrow is Yom Hashoa. So a couple of thoughts that came to mind related to this day. We have time afterwards, we will share Dvar Halacha, not connected. But I think since October 7th, since Simchat Torah, so everything's different. Everything feels different in our lives over the last 7 months. Yom Hashoa is no exception. I think that it's a day, the memories and everything that we think about resonates in a different way since what we've experienced and what we're experiencing in this war. Things which we thought were confined to history, maybe there was particularly everybody has family who went through it. We have amongst us people who went through it, who survived those horrors. And so, of course, it's something that resonates deeply. At the same time, it's something that's happened in history. It's not something that, we expect these kind of things to happen anymore in the world that we're in. And we all woke to a horrific reality to show us that evil still exists, and that level of evil is still here, and there are those who still try and perpetrate those crimes against our people. At the same time, obviously, we have to be very, very wary of making comparisons. What happened then is very different. What's happening now? I saw something which maybe put this in very stark contrast. If just on the sheer scale, just the numbers, we think about what happened on Simchat Torah, where 1,200 people were murdered in one day. So what happened in the Holocaust, we think about the numbers, it's the equivalent of October 7th happening every single day for 13 and a half years. And that's, that maybe puts it into perspective. There is a magnitude here of tragedy that we cannot, I don't think any of us can grasp. I don't think any of us ever will be able to grasp. One of the things that, there's a pasuk that I think comes out very strongly for me, Yom Hashoa, the day of commemoration, obviously was chosen not necessarily as a religious day, and it's not without controversy. The fact that this day was chosen, it's in the month of Nisan, it's not necessarily, there were those who felt not the appropriate time. We know the Rabbanut Harashit chose Asra B'Tevet as the Yom HaKadish HaKlali. And we still have that practice, Asra B'Tevet being the day in which we say Kaddish for all those whose Yod is unknown. And the Rabbanut Harashit had intended for that to be the Yom Hashoa, so to speak, but we have this day. Nonetheless, I think it's not without hashkacha pratit that it happened and that it was chosen. You have this day, we're entering now into this period. We have Yom HaShoah, obviously, this week, leading up to Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaTzmaut next week. And it's hard to think that all of this just happened by coincidence. It's something very powerful and very poignant about these days, about the juxtaposition of these days. Again, remembering back to what was in the Shoah, what happened just a few years later, and leading up. And this is the process, this is the journey which Am Yisrael is on, and which we're all a part of. And one of the things, I think there is a great contrast between Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron, for obvious reasons and for less obvious reasons. But one of the things, when we think about the Shoah, so we commemorate many people. it was always, I know when I was growing up, it was always spoke about the 6 million. The 6 million. It's all about the numbers. You have 6 candles, yeah, one for each million. And of course, part of the reason we talk about numbers is because the magnitude of it is so great, and it's very difficult, to pick one. In recent years, I think there's been a bit of a shift in terms of the way that Yom Hashoa is commemorated. I know in many places they've started giving out candles. And my son came home today with a candle from school, and in England they would do this. It's a project which has started where everybody gets a candle with a name of one of the people, one of the victims of the Holocaust. In other words, we're trying to not just remember numbers, but we're trying to remember names. We're trying to remember people. We're trying to remember each one who is a world, olam umla'o. And that is essentially, that's one of the things that the Nazis tried to do. They tried to dehumanize us. They tried to destroy us. They tried to turn us literally from names into numbers. And there's a pasuk in Tehillim. We say it every day. We say it as part of Pesukei Zimra. It's in the just after Ashrei, in one of those, and the pasuk is, we say Moneh mispar hakochavim lecholam shemot yikra. HaKadosh Baruch Hu counts the numbers of the stars are so vast it can only be counted in numbers, and yet He gives a name to each one. Am Yisrael also are compared to the stars in the sky, and that's why I think that's part of the idea. It's not just numbers, but it's names, it's identity, it's a person, it's a story, it's a living story to tell each one. And that was something that's always struck me very, very, very deeply. On Yom HaZikaron, it's all about Yom HaZikaron, which will come up next week. Yom HaZikaron L'Chalei Ma'achot Yisrael. It's all about the individual stories, and maybe it's closer, and maybe it's because we know more of them. It's not the individual stories and the names, whereas Yom HaShoah is a day that always was about numbers, but more and more it's about the names. It's about remembering the names. That is when we think about what we can remember and what we can do, Le'ilui Nishmatam, of those who are no longer with us. That is to remember, not to allow them to be dehumanized, not to allow them to be wiped out, to remember each and every one of those names. That's one idea. And another idea, I think, which comes up again, and said that it's probably by Hashkacha that it happens at this time of year specifically. This is when Yom HaShoah falls out. So not just the dates, but if you look at the parashiyot, again, I don't think it's by coincidence that Yom HaShoah, Yom HaZikaron, every year comes out, Parashiyot, Acharei Mot Kedoshim. Acharei Mot Kedoshim. Think about those words. Often we read them together. This year we read the two Parashiyot apart. Acharei Mot means after the death, the Kedoshim. Acharei Mot Kedoshim. We are remembering the death of the Kedoshim that took place then. That's taken place in our times as well. And there's a message in the name of that parasha as well. Perhaps one of the messages is Acharei Mot, the fact that there is an Acharei Mot, the fact that after the death that we continue to live, we continue to survive, we continue to thrive, we get up and we go. We see this throughout the Tanakh many, many times. We see it with Abraham and Sarah, after Abraham comes to Lifkod et Sarah v'Lispod et Sarah v'Livkota, after Sarah Imeinu dies. And Abraham, it says Vayakam Ma'amet. He got up and he continued to live, and he continued to build, and he continued to grow. We see the same thing later on by David HaMelech, when he has the child who dies as a divine punishment for David's actions. And before that, at that time, he's praying and he's fasting and he's sitting on the floor and he's not doing anything. And when the child dies, so the Tanakh tells us that David HaMelech gets up, and everybody around says to him, "What are you doing?" He says, "Now the child's dead. There's nothing that I can do, but I have to carry on, have to get up, and we have to continue." Maybe that's a message then, that Acharei Mot, both in terms of Yom HaShoah and in terms of Yom HaZikaron as well. Our enemies, again, we've just come out of Pesach. They tried to destroy us. They tried to create a situation where there was no Acharei Mot. But the message is, we continue. We always will get up. Acharei Mot Kedoshim. We always will continue. The Jewish people are still here. And the greatest tribute that we can give to the memories of those who are no longer with us is that we are still here, and that we will still continue, and that none of those deaths are in vain. Obviously, we wish it wasn't that way, and we wish it was different. That's not something that we have control over, and that's something that's Acharei Mot we continue. maybe one other thought, which I saw a number of years ago. I didn't have time to look it up now, so I don't remember the exact numbers. But going back to the first idea about numbers and names, and something very, very powerful. So a few years ago, they released what was made famous on the internet, whatever it was. We know that the Nazis, when they planned the final solution, so there are documents from the 1C conference. So everything was very meticulous, and they had lists. And they had lists of the Jews in Europe, throughout the world, really, of every single country, and the number of the Jewish population in every country. So whether it was Poland, Germany, Lithuania, etc., all different places. And it was 3 million Jews, 1 million Jews, 600,000 Jews. I don't remember now offhand where it was, but you go down that list, and you see there are certain countries, 120 Jews. One of the countries that was the smallest population. There was, and you think, what is it? What is this obsession? What does it matter to those? You have one. If it's talking about world domination, talking about whatever it is, but there's one country somewhere with 120 Jews, and that's all. Why were they so obsessed? Why did it matter so much that there was the last, and every single Jew that he counted that was so important? And it's I guess we think back to Megillat Esther. You think back to the story of Haman and Mordechai, and Haman, who is of course the descendant with the ancestor of Amalek. And each day, the fact that Mordechai lo yechav v'lo yishtachaveh, and that's what drove him mad. That's what drove him crazy. You have this person. He's got everything he wants. He's in charge of the whole empire. There's one Jew somewhere who's not doing what he wants, and that was the thing that he couldn't. He couldn't get over. There's an irrational hatred. There's an irrational fear over here. But maybe there's a message inside. Every single one of us, every single Jew is so important. Every single Jew has got such potential and has got such power and has got such everything that we do. Every one of us matters. Every one of us who is gone, again, we remember their memory. Sometimes, unfortunately, the greatest lessons it takes our enemies to teach us. We say when we make a shiur, when there's a pasuk, we say, and we gain wisdom from our enemies. We learn from those who hate us as well. But if they were so obsessed, and they still are so obsessed with every single one of us and every single individual, again, going back to the names, not just the numbers, but it's for us to understand, each one of us to realize, to recognize the potential that each of us has, and what we can do and the contribution that we can make to the Jewish people. So on this day, we remember the 6 million, we remember all those who perished, remember all those who survived as well, and the horrors that they went through. And we begin to think and to rededicate ourselves, how we can continue to live, what we can continue to do, how we can continue to use our power and our potential to make sure that no loss of life, no Jewish loss of life should ever be in vain. יהי זכרם ברוך. חנניה בן הקש, שאמר עשה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות ישראל, לפכח ובא להם תורה ומצוות, שנאמר אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה